Islam's Theft of Europe, again. This is Abin al-Hurriya, Son of Freedom. This will be part 3 of 7 parts. Islam recasts other religions as perversions of it. In one narrative, Islam recasts Christianity and Judaism as expressions of Islam in the sense that those elements of them that are correct and authentic are the Islamic expressions. This view is expressed in Ismail R. al-Faruqi, Islam and Other Faiths, 1998. Islam views itself as the one true Abrahamic faith, that Christianity and Judaism are actually perversions of their true Islamic faith, insofar as they maintain a distinct identity from Islam. This gives a hint to the direction Islam will go in its dealings with European churches. Europe is already post-Christian due to the Enlightenment, collisions with science, and biblical criticism. In Islamic theology, the biblical characters are Muslim prophets. The Bible, as it exists today, has been corrupted from its original pristine character, according to the Islamic claims. Therefore, the Hebrew Old Testament and Greek New Testament have little spiritual value. Conveniently, the original Islamic versions of these books have been lost in antiquity. Theological jihad is the effort by Islamic actors to co-opt the church and to rewrite history and theology, to annihilate a distinct Christian identity and to subsume the Christian world under Islamic domination. It is just one more expression of the supremacist character of Islam. Islam is exploiting the theological self-doubt in the mainline Protestant churches in Europe and through interfaith dialogues. Islamic actors will market their approach by promoting peaceful coexistence. They will gradually Dhimify the European churches, after which time those churches will slowly lose their identity, just as whole nations lost their identity in the medieval period. Palestinianism, in its theological approach, seeks to cut the Gospels loose from their Judaic roots in an anti-Semitic form of Marcionism. This type of Marcionism allows Islamic actors to cut the church loose from the Old Testament and the Jews. It is a way of further isolating Israel politically, and it is a way of weakening Christian identity. It can be called an Arabized Christianity. It is syncretism. Another technique used by Islamic actors is in the use of liberation theology as applied to the plight, so-called, of the Palestinians. Recall that liberation theology was used heavily in Latin America to reinterpret the Bible in Marxist categories so that the church could be co-opted into supporting the Marxist agenda. Using similar methods, Islamic actors are using a liberation theology approach to erode the identity of European Christianity and to co-opt left-leaning, mostly mainline churches into supporting an Islamist agenda, which includes Palestinianism. In this way, Islamic actors seek to sever the historical connection between Jews and Christians and to redirect Christians' fraternity to Islam, against the Jews, of course. This annihilation of Christianity's identity is a way of stealing away the biblical history of the Jews and to deprive Israel of legitimacy. Many church leaders, in the name of interfaith dialogue, cannot see this agenda on the part of Islamic actors. In this way, the church allows itself to be Dhimmified, quote, by its own hands, end quote, in the words of the explanatory memorandum entered into evidence in the Holy Land Foundation Trial 2008. Another way that theological jihad is carried out is in the criminalizing of Zionism. By criminalizing or demonizing Zionism, Islamic actors co-opt the church into denying Israel's right to its own homeland and national identity. This is a form of dhimmitude because it is making the church do something against its own character and history. Another expression of dhimmification consists in getting church leaders to criticize the very concept of nationalism in the name of theology, thereby keeping the foot in the door to unrestrained immigration policies. The Jews, according to this narrative, did not live in the Promised Land, but in the land belonging to the Palestinians. What Westerners call the Holy Land is a Muslim land. Any claim to the historicity of the Old Testament or of the Jewishness of places is viscerally rejected by Muslims. Islamization-of-knowledge thesis. This is promoted by the International Institute of Islamic Thought, otherwise called IIIT. This thesis is a generalization of the Islamic revisionism of the history of medieval science and the Islamization of theology found in Islamic literature. It says that all knowledge fundamentally flows from Islamic revelation, even seemingly secular knowledge. It claims that the reason why Western knowledge and intellectual achievements flourished in the medieval period is because of its Islamic underpinning. Edward Said's Orientalism reflects this attitude. The original proposal comes from Raji al-Faruqi al-Tawhid, its implications for thought and life. Dhimmitude, medieval and modern. The dhimmitude which occurred in the medieval period came as a result of overt warfare or the threat of it. The dhimmitude of Europe we are seeing today is a slower, more subtle process. It is partly the result of unrestrained immigration coupled with the insularity of incoming Muslims. It is also the result of incremental political concessions made by European states through the agency of the EU and Brussels. The main body of this study, refer to Batyor's books, is to show how the policies foisted on the EU were conceived and levied on the EU by the Euro-Arab dialogue and the organization of the Islamic Conference. The net result of this process has been to transform Europe into Eurabia, the dhimmi of the OIC, meaning that Europe is becoming the political satellite of the OIC. One expression of dhimmitude. A propaganda move in European dhimmitude is for Islamic actors to sell the idea that terrorism has nothing to do with Islam. In this narrative, terrorism results from past colonialism and current injustices and the lack of respect for Muslims. Terrorism results also from the world allowing Israel to exist. Allowing Israel to exist in this narrative is a terrible affront to the Palestinians, according to the narrative. Terrorism is also the result of non-Muslims resisting the Islamization of their countries. Since Islam has a theological mandate to dominate the world, jihad is a righteous act. Any attempt to resist it is considered by Islamic actors to be an aggressive act. Non-Muslims are guilty of resisting the will of Allah. Islamic concept of waqf. In Islamic theology, the entire earth belongs to Allah, politically. Jihad is the authorized mechanism for bringing the earth under Allah. Any land held by a non-Muslim people is considered stolen from Allah. Jihad is a righteous act in that it is the mechanism for returning that land to its rightful owner, Allah. In the Islamic mind, this makes jihad a defensive act. Although this may seem strange to a Westerner, it is the standpoint of Islamic theology. See the references here on the screen. Contribution of Edward Said. He is famous for writing his Orientalism, 1978. Said was a Christian dhimmi posing and writing as a Palestinian and an active member of the PLO. One of the theses of this book is that only Muslims can fairly write about Islamic history, that any such history written by a Westerner can only be racially biased. This is an expression of identity politics and multiculturalism. European Union movement toward totalitarianism. The EU has gradually adopted more and more policies which deprive the member nations of their national identity and self-determination. The bureaucracy of Brussels is insular from having to be responsive to the needs of the average citizen of member states. The government in Brussels is more beholden to the OIC and to Arab interests than to its member states. Political correctness and multiculturalism are eclipsing the ideals of Western democracy. UN Resolution 1618, as codified in member states, eclipses free speech. Okay, that ends the third part.